Ancient climate data shows that around 140,000 years ago, most of tropical Africa became uninhabitable. Our ancestors were forced to seek refuge on coasts and highlands.
It looks like 4 to 6 potential locations in Africa that would still be supportive of hunter-gatherer populations.
Despite the refuges, there is evidence our ancestors were pushed to the brink of extinction.
The genetic record shows us that all modern humans are descended from a small population of approximately 600 breeding individuals.
There's disagreement about the numbers and timing, but it does seem that all people on Earth are descended from a very small original population in Africa. Curtis Marion believes they lived on the South African coastline and that it was life by the sea that forced them to change. At Pinnacle Point, South Africa, he has found caves used by early Homo sapiens ancestors during the mega-drought period. They're full of clues that hint at new ways of thinking and behaving. Here, he has found some of the earliest evidence that humans were living off the sea.
This darkish material here is ash from a fireplace, and the vast majority of this material is burnt shell. So clearly there was quite a bit of cooking of shellfish that was taking place at this exact spot. 76,000 years ago. Somebody had a nice shellfish dinner there.
Here was a population that was broadening its diet away from meat, requiring ingenuity unknown among earlier ancestors.
You go out to collect shellfish at the wrong time, you're dead. You have to be able to time your access to the coastline so that you are here when the tides are right to collect those shellfish.
The best time to collect shellfish is at extreme low tides. And to predict those, it helps to understand the cycles of the moon.
Those are the times that you want to be collecting shellfish. All the shellfish are exposed. So this water, which you see here, is out there at that point where that rock is. So the smart coastal hunter-gatherer knows how to use the moon to signal to them when to come to the coastline to collect the shellfish.
The people of Pinnacle Point were not just harvesting shellfish, they were also hunting on the plains behind the coast and gathering berries and roots. Their way of life reflected a new versatility.
The systematic use of coastal resources does suggest a cognitive complexity.
Our ancestors occupied these caves for over 140,000 years, leaving behind an amazing record of their transformation.
This site documents a change in the way that people made stone tools. At the bottom of the sequence, they made stone tools with this rough quartzite material. And then right at about 71,000 years ago, which occurs just about there in the sequence, they make a shift to making stone tools on this silkrete in the form of long, thin blades. Before flaking it, the people here were heating this material in the fire, and through heating it, improved its flakability. And that was at about 71,000 years ago. About 40,000 years older than that has been found anywhere else in the world.
The technology of our ancestors was expanding from the single all-purpose hand axe to a variety of lighter, specialized tools.
Then they started to make these kinds of things. They made tools with special little points for perforating tasks. Like this. They made others with special little chisel ends for carving tasks.
Specialized tools allowed our ancestors to get more out of their environment. But this wasn't the only change.
And at this point, we begin to see people treating stone tools as symbols. They're making them more complex than they need to be to accomplish a particular cutting task. So at this point, stone tools are no longer just tools for cutting things, they're instruments of carrying social information about their owners.
A new type of symbolic consciousness was emerging. The first evidence of decorative art made from a naturally occurring mineral called red ochre has been found at Blombos, another cave along the South African coast.
While we were excavating more or less in this area you can see over here, we found a chunk of ochre, and when we brushed up the surface of the ochre, we realized that there was actually a design on the one side. And once we looked at it in more detail, held it up to the light, we could see a cross-hatched pattern that had lines zigzagged across the surface of this flat ground surface, and also had lines across the top, through the middle, and along the bottom. And you can imagine there was enormous excitement because we did not expect to find something that might represent a symbolic image in these 75,000-year-old levels. So this really was an enormous surprise for us.
At Blombos, they've also found shells with holes drilled in them, believed to have been used for necklaces. So our ancestors were now wearing ornaments and probably painting their bodies as well.
For me, what is really important is here, for the first time, really ever, we have evidence that people can store information outside of the human brain.
It is the birth of a new type of human culture. More complex, but easier to pass on from generation to generation.